This is a robot voice reading of the translated transcript of a Finnish podcast. Well, let's go. I'll start doing the first episode of the tuuliajollapodcast. Well then, why do a podcast like this? Obviously, making podcasts is all the rage now, and I just thought that I'd try and see what this is. And secondly, when my wife can't listen to sailing stuff at all anymore, then I must unpack it somewhere. So I'm going to talk to myself here on the screen and babble about these things like this here. Let's see what happens. Let's go. It probably makes sense to start and talk a little bit about the background and think a little bit about why you go out and write podcasts, or do podcasts in general. For a long time, journey making has been an obvious thing for me, and maybe more interesting than getting to the destination. And what does it mean when you get to your destination? That's why I feel like sailing is one sensible option in that case, because it's going somewhere at a walking pace in a worst-case scenario. And then again, the idea that you have your home with you no matter where you go. So journey making and having your home with you are fascinating things. And also that when you sail, you don't necessarily use any fuel at all, but you move with the force of the wind, which is just terribly fascinating as well. And at the same time, it is combined with the fact that a boat could be like a family summer cottage, that one can go somewhere on the shore of an island and drop the anchor and enjoy it. Like a mobile summer cottage, a bit like a caravan, but still not quite. Let's move on. So I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I'm kind of like this, that I get excited about something, and then at some point I'm excited, and then that enthusiasm stops, and the interest goes elsewhere. But this sailing thing has been going on for many years now. So I have listened to a lot of podcasts, for example, 59 Knots Productions. It's something I've listened to a lot, surely every single episode. And also Matt Rutherford's tough straight rambling speeches that I have listened to a lot. And Matt Rutherford, had an of Albin Vega sailboat, which he used to sail around the Americas, non-stop, single-handed, without stopping, alone. So that was fascinating. And then I woke up with the idea that is there any podcasts like this in Finnish? That the English podcasts I have listened to have given so much for me. So why wouldn't there be something like that in Finnish too? And then thought that I could sort of like unpack my own things into it. And then also, if possible, I could interview people. And to get more information about these interesting sailing-related things, so that they would be memorized somewhere here on the web. Maybe a bit like that. Because there is a really big sailing thing in Finland, and the history is really colorful and really meritorious actually. So then it would seem stupid that it is nowhere to be found. And then, for example, locally, there are a lot of great sailors and good clubs here, so it could be quite interesting to talk to them as well. Well, but that's it. Let's start cutting the background of my boat purchase and how it all happened. Let's go on this journey now. So, after listening to all these podcasts and exploring and all that kind of things, then it just made me feel like it would be a good moment to get a boat now. Then there was very rigorous researching and looking around the internet for boats. And then I figured out that in Sweden used sailboats are much cheaper. Also, you can easily get over to Umeå from Vasa. So, I set my sights on Umeå and the east coast of Sweden. After some time searching, there started to be a couple of options that would have suited my price range. As in cheap, and yet it seemed that they could be in such a condition that they could be bought and sailed back to Finland right away. Then when there were a couple of candidates left. At this point I started asking around from friends a little bit. If I were to go and get a sailboat, would you come along, because I needed a couple buddies to tag along anyway. Because I've never sailed from Sweden to Finland before, or anything more than coastal sailing. So there had to be some guys there with me. Then I asked a longtime friend. He said that yes, he can come along, but he doesn't know anything about sailing. But he can manage and can get used to working even in difficult situations, and is relaxed and calm, that there is nothing to worry about here and then. One other acquaintance, who has sailed more than that, he himself has a havsvidra, a tiny, really nice boat, on which he had sailed for several summers, and on which I had been aboard several times and had even raced. So I trusted his skills, that he sure can sail. So I asked him to come along, and he then agreed that yes, we can go. That's how we had a posse together, that is, me and two guys. We were in the starting pits when it was confirmed. So then I had to be in touch with the Swedish end. If I'm going to go out there from Finland now, is the boat in such a condition that it can launch and put on the seas right away, or should I start to search for some other boats? So I had a couple of options. There was one boat in Umeå and one was in Harnesand. The Umeå boat was a Hallberg Grassy missile too. I think it's 24 feet long. That boat is a tried and tested boat model, at least based on Google information. And then in Harnesand there was an Albin Vega for sale, which, at least according to the seller, was in really good condition. It had of course been standing on the hard for quite a long time, but it was dry and in all respects okay, that it would need a washing and such, and then there was nothing more to it than that. With this rather flimsy information, we started the journey. I guess you learn along the way. So I had contacted both sellers and agreed that if I didn't buy one boat, I could buy the other. I could then go get it if I feel like it and go and see. But nevertheless, the main focus was on the Albin Vega in Harnesand, of course. Then it was nothing more than that. Pretty straightforward if you say so, all you have to do is go. So we left. We had such a time window that during the weekend we should go there, and then on Sunday we had to be back to get to work for Monday. So we took the Umeå ferry across to Sweden. We came to Umeå. At that point there were already some exciting coincidences. So there was a bit of difficult connections to get to Harnesand from Umeå. We decided to rent a car and then drive to Harnesand. But since I had planned so carelessly, according to me, there was no possibility to get to Harnesand with a rental car, because we would have to leave it there and it would have been too expensive. So we should go to another city, then hop on a train that would then have taken us to Harnesand. Okay, well, we jumped into that pretty cool rental car and we drove it to, I don't remember which city it was now. But then we had to hop on the train pretty close to Harnesand. But the train wasn't there because there was a break in it, and then we had to choose an alternative route, which was a replacement bus ride. We waited an insanely long time and we couldn't find the right bus. Even the bus drivers didn't really know which bus to take, who to take with them and everything. Well, we got there after a bit of a delay, and then, when we got there to the bus station, there in Harnesand, at that bus station there was a delivery point of one of the other rental car dealerships. In other words, if I had studied a little more closely, we would have reached our destination with a rental car. But that's okay. Well, when we got to the bus station, we were greeted by this older gentleman. A very nice gentleman who had sung in the choir and all sorts of things. And unfortunately his wife had died a little while ago. That's probably why he was selling the boat now, because he didn't go out to sail on his own. He didn't go out on the water at all. And he was very glad over the thought that this boat was to get a good place. And it would come back on the water and come into use, that the boat was meant for sailing anyway. Yes, as you might remember, we had a bit of a tight schedule. So on Sunday we had to be back on the Finnish side. During our travels I had been in a discussion all the time with the seller. Hey, that the boat needs to be put in the water the day we come. That it must be in the water when we come. There was some kind of hassle on the day we went there. So the high school graduation ceremonies were on the same day. And everyone were visiting family and so on in this case as well. So the guy who had been lifting those boats out into the water, he had a nephew or even a child of his own who had then graduated. So he would like to be at the party, not lifting boats. So quite strictly, I was sending text messages to the seller that hey, that really if you don't take care of this, then we'll go straight for the boat in Umeå. So we've come all the way there to see that boat, so it must be ready on the water. Well, fortunately, this jovial older gentleman had arranged it so that he got the boat out on the water at that time. And I have to admit that in hindsight I'm a little ashamed of the way I brought it up. That hey, now you have to get it out on the water. But it could be that he was quite happy at the end of the day that there was a little bit of pressure, that we could get it out on the water. And of course, I said yes, that's okay, that I can pay for it as long as we get it on the water. But the seller was of the opinion that they have promised that he will take care of it, and he will take care of it. Alright, so first we got to the IKA Maxi, then to the harbor to see the boat. One of the guys involved, who had his own sailboat. And I trusted him in the sense that he could do a little bit of a survey on it and see what that boat was like. For a very long time we studied and watched and researched, and then in the end the evening began to get darker, so now we had to decide about buying the boat or not. This friend of mine, who had been studying the boat, thought that maybe I shouldn't buy this boat now. But unfortunately, I had almost sold it to myself by the time I saw it there at Blocket. There wasn't much to say about it, no matter what you would have said. So then it was decided that, well, the boat was going to be bought. And we went to get all the equipment that wasn't there on the boat, of course. That is, mattresses and sails and others. They had been in dry storage. And, of course, the mast wasn't there at that point. There was a mast lift which we then started to try and figure out. As the light faded, even though it was summer, the light was getting lower all the time, and we were like, well, we're not going anywhere tonight. Let's put the mast up and see that everything is okay. And there is the guest harbor near it, and let's sail there, sleep the night, and then set sail towards Vasa in the morning. That is, it was the plan. We got the mast upright. Luckily, there was this experienced guy involved. Without him, we wouldn't have made it at any point in that situation. But yes, we got the mast up and it looked pretty good. The roller genoa was in the front, which was assembled on its place. Also, the main sail was put on. That roller genoa was in pretty good condition. It hadn't been used many seasons. The former owner had not sailed much. He had only done a little day sailing, when the wife had not been able to accompany him. He had not been able to go and enjoy his sailing either. Well, yes, we got the mast upright, the sails in place, some gas in the tank. The engine also started, although there were quite a few problems with that engine at a later stage, but still. We left the harbor, and I can believe that the other members of this small marina were glad that we were no longer there in the morning, that we had made our way. We then moved on to the guest harbor that was close by, and the sleeping bags were brought out and we went to bed on the boat. We slept just fine. I don't know, my shoes must have smelled awful, but no one was too mad about it, so we slept well that night. There was no heating on the boat, of course, but that was okay. In the morning we woke up. We went to a nearby market to get a little proviant, and we walked back to the boat. Or not. We had a few adventures around the city. We were looking for a toilet where we could have cleaned up a bit, and that sort of thing. And a taxi driver decided to drive us for free. Because we didn't have Swift that would have worked, so he couldn't take any payment, except a card or money, so we got a free ride, which was weird. So, then we came back to the boat and put everything in order. And we were in the starting pits. So the idea was to sail from Harnesand to Vasa or to Reipaljuoto, where there was at least one port where you could put the boat. Well, the original idea was to sail to Burgo, south of Vasa, and stop there. There was one port where I could have put the boat for a while because I wouldn't been able to get the boat to Kokkola during that weekend. Then we left. It was decided that we would go to Reipaljuoto, and that's where we would sail. It was about 90 nautical miles from Harnesand to there. We could do that distance in the time we had. Sadly, there was a bit of weak winds, or it was known that it would subside. That wind caused a bit of a worry that what if we didn't get there in time. But that's just it, it always takes time to travel. Yes, but I thought that this time we wouldn't talk about the sailing itself, the crossing over to Vasa. Let's leave it for the next time. Maybe it's time to take a little break and take the next episode then. So if you've been listening so far, it's really nice that you listened. The next episode will probably come in a little while from now. It will probably deal with when we sailed over and what all the stuff happened before we got the boat to Kokkola. Because there was all sorts of things. But yes, nothing more. Thank you and Morgens. So this was a tuuliajollapodcast. That's my lonely ramblings about sailing, owning a boat, renovating it, and all sorts of things. I hope you come again.